on topic. No. Hello, everyone, and welcome. We want to invite you to get comfortable and listen, or you can multitask and enjoy our story. We're sharing our Disney disaster that we experienced in 2019, and we learned from our mistakes, and hopefully, you're going to avoid these mistakes altogether on your magical Disney vacation. I'm joined by my sister Mandy today.
Hi,
Hi,
everybody.
sis. I'm Jenny. I live in Central Florida. I'm an annual pass holder at Walt Disney World and Universal Orlando. Woo woo! I
Woohoo.
love going to the theme parks. Mary Poppins is my favorite movie, and Pirates of the Caribbean is my favorite ride.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mandy. I'm the younger sister. I live in Pennsylvania, unfortunately, although I am lucky enough to be able to visit Florida often because of Jenny. So I'm lucky with that. My favorite all time movie is toss up between Jurassic Park and any Harry Potter movie. Favorite Disney movie. I can name off so many, but right now, currently, it's Coco, and I did actually really like Moana too. But I'm just excited to talk about this story with you guys, so we'll go ahead and get started.
Yeah, I think this is a good story, and she and I have talked about this trip quite a lot, and we thought that, maybe some of you could benefit from hearing about our experience and the things that weren't so magical. So, you'll be prepared for difficult situations because they can totally happen to anyone despite how prepared you are. Um, but honestly, we kind of went into our trip in 2019 not really prepared.
Hmm.
We had very loose plans that we made very late. I think we made our reservation for Walt Disney World maybe a month before we traveled. Um, and the big downfall that we experienced was going during spring break. You can totally go during spring break. You have to be prepared for spring break. And we showed up like it was just a normal day. And like I said, and I will say a million times, we were not prepared.
And that's
Um,
exactly why she says we talk about this trip a lot because we talk about what went wrong and everything we would do differently now and everything we do differently now, knowing what we know and how to manage and how to organize and how to, prepare. So that's why we talk about it a lot because like, had we have done it differently, it would have been a much different experience.
Yeah, and we really did have a good experience. At the end of the day, we had quite a few setbacks. Once we pushed through those, Disney kind of does its own Disney magical thing, and it's almost inevitable when you're at the parks. And I think that's why, Mandy and I like going to the parks so much. Is it's like its own magical place. It's exactly what Walt wanted the Disney parks to be. It truly is magical.
Yeah.
Um, but it's okay to not have a perfect trip. And I think a lot of people um, are afraid of not having a perfect trip. Um, you know, but that's not to say that it can't still be really memorable and you can't have some like true highlights from that trip. But just don't do what we did in
Mm-hmm.
2019.
Get
um,
yourself a travel agent to help you, or at least somebody that knows a lot about the parks and can give you some tips. Like,
yeah,
it will
and
go a long way.
full disclosure, we are both travel agents. Um, but you can use a travel agent for free. Their services are complimentary. Everybody who goes to Disney World is paying to use a travel agent, whether or not they actually use a travel agent to get there. Travel agents can only save you money on your vacations. They're not going to make them more expensive. Um, and we're I think the biggest thing that I do, it's not doing the booking itself, it's answering all the questions and helping families be prepared, which is exactly what we weren't in 2019. We went on this vacation without the help of a travel agent. We did the booking ourselves. And I think a travel agent would have helped us avoid a lot of the mistakes that we made. So it was our mom's first cruise. She was cruising with her brother and his wife. They cruised all the time. And she was coming back to port in Miami. And the plan was she was going to drive up from Miami in a rental car and meet us at Walt Disney World. And we were going to fly down to Pennsylvania together, and, you know, the whole family was going to have a big Disney vacation. Um, Fortunately, the part of the trip that went really well was her driving from Miami
The travels on our end and
to
her end.
Orlando by herself,
And she had a
because,
great cruise.
she did. She had a great cruise. You know,
First of many.
the first of very, very many cruises. Um, and we booked our stay at the All Star Movies Resort. It was the first time my sister and I stayed on Disney property. It was the first time my kids ever went to Disney. And it was the first trip we had made to Disney World since 2003. So 16 years in between trips. And I don't know if you know this about Disney, but it's always changing and it
Mm-hmm.
changes very, very quickly. And I, maybe you can talk about our trip in 2003 a little bit, to explain why we went into this trip without really making plans. Because in 2003, we didn't need plans, right?
Yeah, just like she said about how much it changed and we weren't expecting it. We missed out on opportunities such as character experiences because when we went in 2003, I don't know who, has been there around that time. A lot of the characters would roam. You would catch them on the fly. You wouldn't even need to be looking for them. That they would just come upon you. They at one point like grabbed my hoodie and was lifting it up, and we were getting pictures together. We have so many pictures, so many signatures from that trip without even trying. And back then they had the paper passes and everything where you'd get your time and go back later. And it didn't take a lot of prep work to go on those kind of trips back then. And then when we went, we didn't do the research, we didn't look, we just, I guess, just kind of assumed that Disney was still doing that. We were none the wiser, had not of going that long period of time and known to even look for such changes. And now, if you go now, it was similar in 2019. You have waiting lines for character experiences. Autograph books really so much a thing as they were back then either. I mean, to each their own, but it's, you get a photo pass picture and everything else. But back then it was just selfies and, you just go ride rides and wait in lines. And then we went 2019. We didn't know to look into the rides or even where they were located in the park to be familiar with a map. It was just,
Yeah, no strategy.
no, none whatsoever. And we will talk about that, about how that really doesn't work.
Yeah, and I mean,
Not
like,
knowing and being ignorant, in thinking that it's going to be super easy. Disney's work, like it really is. Like for you to have a perfect day or to get check those marks off of the things that you want to do, like you're going to need to know about it. That's all.
yeah. And I mean, like, we are totally Disney nerds. Like, we're always, I mean, she and I are always sending each other, Disney content, and she's always sending me to the parks to try, new festival food at Epcot, which
I'm
I'm happy
always
to
up on
oblige.
the know-how of the trending snacks. So
Yes, yes, you are definitely the snack expert. Um, so it's not that we didn't know anything about Disney. I think it's just that we didn't know the right things about Disney. We didn't realize, which we should have in 16 years, just how much could have possibly changed at the park. You know, it was the parks were still using the old fast pass system in 2019. In 2003, it was still the nostalgic paper fast passes.
Mm-hmm.
In 2019, it was scheduling your fast passes in advance through the My Disney Experience app. So, that was a little bit different. And I think maybe we wrongly assumed that fast passes could still be utilized the way they
Yeah.
were in 2003, that we could
Mm-hmm.
go to the attractions to get them. So I definitely think we were naive.
Or we even just simply liken it to, we're from like Pittsburgh area, and there's, a major amusement park there, and I think we just kind of thought you just go, you wait in line, you ride a ride, you know what I mean? And you don't think of the potential and the mass amount of people that attend a park like Disney as opposed to a park in Pittsburgh. You know what I mean? Like you don't prepare for that. You just kind of think, oh, we're just going to an amusement park. We're going to wait in the line to ride a ride, and then go to the next, go to the next, go to the next. But as you know, even what she's saying, how things have changed. Even recently, things have changed. I felt like yesterday we had Genie Plus. Now we have Lightning Lanes, multi-pass, virtual queues. Now we kind of don't have virtual queues.
Yeah.
It's just, you know what I mean? Like just like a few days ago, Tiana and Guardians no longer have virtual queues. It's changing, and it's really helpful to have somebody that knows that, because even if somebody went like within those last couple of days, between the switch
Yeah.
and not knowing, and missed out on an opportunity with because they didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always changing. And Walt Disney himself has said that, that was kind of his vision for the parks, is that they would always be changing and evolving and growing with the people who visit the parks. So, in 2019, things started to go wrong when the unthinkable happened, and probably the thing that I think a lot of people, especially some of the moms who plan these vacations, are concerned about. It's having kids who are not feeling so well on the very first day of your Disney trip, or any day of your Disney trip.
Mm-hmm.
And we all made it to the Disney resort perfectly fine. Everything was totally normal. Everybody was feeling good. Um, our mom made it very safely and uneventfully on her drive from Miami to Orlando. But then in the middle of the night, my son woke up. He would have been 8 years old during our trip, and he was feeling a little fevered, and I could tell that he was about to have all the drainage
Bad
and
sore throat.
mucus and a sore throat. It hit him very, very quickly. I had to go to a Walmart off property. I'm not even sure which Walmart I went to. And I went there in the middle of the night to get him a bunch of supplies so, we could get him through whatever he was dealing with. I think we even had a conversation about me not going to the parks at all and staying at the resort with him.
Yeah.
And, I do want to emphasize this, because I think about this a lot and it bothers me now. But in 2019, even thinking about taking a sick kid to the park was a lot different than it feels ever since 2020 happened.
Mm-hmm.
And today, I would definitely stay behind and not take a sick kid to the parks. In 2019, I think we all underestimated having sick kids on a Disney vacation and thought, oh, we've got to push through it. We don't want to miss out on this. And I do want to emphasize, I would definitely have handled this situation differently now. Disney is notorious for taking care of guests who are not feeling well,
Mm-hmm.
and in some cases being very, very accommodating and understanding if you are not able to visit the parks because someone is not feeling well. That may not have exactly been the case back in 2019. But I do think since 2020, a lot of policies have changed. So, you know, nobody wants that to happen, but it can totally happen, and it does happen all the time. I mean, I see so many times in, Disney Facebook groups, the stomach virus was a really big problem at Disney this year, and I was happy to be blocked out of the parks during the holidays because, I mean, everybody was getting the stomach virus, and you know, nobody wants to be sick on vacation, but it can happen. Uh, you know, I I got him what he needed to, get comfortable. It was something that, it was nothing unusual for him or us to deal with.
Hmm.
Um, and we didn't have the same things to worry about in 2019 that we do now. So, he he woke up that morning and, he said that he was, you know, feeling like he could handle it.
Hmm. I don't remember him
He
even complaining that day, through the day, that,
Yeah.
what I mean, that he was progressing, or, needed to go lay down, or, wasn't having any fun.
Yeah, we did have the double stroller. My daughter was only 3 or 4 years old at the time. And that's too much walking for a toddler at the Disney park. So we did have a double stroller. He made himself comfortable a couple of times, but he was keeping hydrated. His energy level was, not so bad. Um, so we did go to the parks. He was not feeling 100% for sure. And I will say it again. I wish I had stayed behind with him and made him comfortable, but the reality of the situation is we did go to the parks, even though he wasn't feeling too good. Um, so, we started our Disney trip at the Magic Kingdom. Um, Do you remember what fast passes we had for the Magic Kingdom on that trip? I know we booked our trip very, very close to our departure. So
Hmm.
I know when we made fast pass selections, there were not what I would consider
Hmm.
great options.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before, but I mean, don't even remember what all we did, because it wasn't a lot, but we have some pictures from Splash Mountain, Space Mountain, and Little Mermaid, for sure. And
Yeah.
then
And
there was an
I
attempt to
don't,
Dumbo.
yeah. And I don't remember riding Pirates or Haunted Mansion. I
Mm.
just, we certainly didn't accomplish the types of things we normally accomplish at the parks now. But, it was because we showed up at the Magic Kingdom and it was spring breaking so hard.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I think it was probably the most crowded day I have ever been at the Magic Kingdom. And, I don't know if it's because, 2019, pre COVID, pre park pass reservations and things like that. I don't know if that's what the difference was there, but we saw wait times that day that I have not seen at that park anytime since.
Yeah.
Um, and even though we had visited the Magic Kingdom, that trip in 2003, we were literally there for spring break. It was, we were on spring break from university. I think our parents were super happy that we wanted to go to Walt Disney World for our spring break and, not some beach so we could go get into some trouble. So we knew that it would be spring break, but I think we expected it to be like it was in 2003, and it was like not a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So, it was very crowded. I remember one of the first things that we tried to do, and this sticks with me so much, is one of the lowest wait times that we saw in the My Disney Experience app was 50 minutes for Dumbo. 50 minutes for Dumbo. I have never seen that ride have a wait time like that since that day, but that was our best option for, starting to tackle some attractions was 50 minutes for Dumbo. So we
Hmm.
could spin in circles for 1 minute.
No
And
hate to Dumbo,
yeah,
but
no hate to Dumbo. It's a
it's not a
gorgeous
high
ride.
flyer.
Yeah.
It's not a
I
top tier.
yeah, and I don't know if the kids were hungry or thirsty, but we were in line for so long for Dumbo. I don't know if it was more than 50 minutes, but at some point we actually left the line because the kids were hungry and thirsty, and we did not know that you can take snacks, your own snacks, into Walt Disney World. So
Hmm.
the only option we had was getting out of line, and that's probably when we had a Mickey pretzel, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think maybe we had a fast pass for Journey of the Little Mermaid, because that was the next attraction that we tackled, right?
Hmm. And I think we
Yeah.
also like made sure like there were options that we could do, with your daughter being that young too. But I know that three of us at least rode Space Mountain at one point because we have a picture.
It's a blur.
Yeah.
Um, but honestly, when you're middle aged or close to middle aged like me, um, it just everything seems like a blur. It's hard to
I
remember
mean now and
things.
now at this point too, the amount of times that you've been to Disney too, you know what I mean? You can't pinpoint the dates or whatever, but this kind of stands out as like the beginning of climbing that mountain to our love for Disney. And I mean, clearly it didn't deter us in any way. We've only grown stronger in knowledge with everything that has to do with this. But
Yeah.
I mean, that trip we didn't have, like she said, we didn't have snacks. We didn't have dining reservations. We didn't prepare. We were at the mercy of the food carts, like she said, a Mickey pretzel, and not knowing that there are other things in the park that are lower wait times. We could have done a lot more, even like per land or per area of the park, before allowing us to get too frustrated that, like, we're looking in the app or whatever. It's like, oh well, what has the lowest wait time, even if it's clear across the park, not
Yeah, and
knowing
that
that
that was
there's
that was our
rides that go
strategy.
quickly or stuff like that, to be able to do more in an area before moving on. But
Yeah. It,
yeah.
it was definitely a learning experience, and I mean, you mentioned you have pictures of us on Space Mountain,
Mhm.
and Splash Mountain. We know we rode Journey of the Little Mermaid, and to be quite honest, I think that's all that we rode that day. Everything else that we did were some character meets that
Mhm.
I think really saved the day. If you think that all you want to do at Disney is ride the rides, go for it.
Mhm.
You don't want to miss out on some of the incredible shows that they have at all the parks. They have some amazing shows. Um, but don't skip the character meet and greets. Like she said, they're a lot different than they were in 2003. The characters just used to walk around the parks
Mhm.
openly. I remember we bumped into Mary Poppins, and it was spontaneous and laid back, and it was fun. But you know, don't not wait in line to meet characters. Those are some of the best experiences.
Mhm.
Especially for smaller kids too, who feel like meeting the characters is like more of like a direct experience. It's not being on a ride and being in the story. It's meeting the characters is like getting to be the
Mhm.
story.
Yeah, and you
Um,
finally get your moment too. You know what I mean? Just like whenever you finally at the end of the line to ride a ride and you get on the ride, it's finally your time. And those character meet and greets are really nice to have because you feel like you're finally getting that one-on-one from
yeah,
being at Disney. You know what I mean? It's finally your turn.
yeah, and the character meet and greets. I mean, it's. I don't think I've ever met a character at the Disney parks that was just take a picture and move on. I mean,
Mhm.
there's always a moment there. I mean,
Yeah.
they take the time to focus on you and the people in your party there. Especially the kids. And they also know how to make the kids comfortable. I made fun of you for this, but um, Mandy used to be afraid of Chuck E. Cheese. You used to be afraid of Ronald McDonald too. Do you remember that?
Well, yeah, because I don't like clowns. I still don't. So that tracks.
Yeah. Don't blame you for not liking clowns, but you were afraid of any type of full size character when we were kids.
Mhm.
And sometimes that happens at the Disney parks. It can be a little overwhelming for some kiddos, but they know how to respect boundaries and how to make people comfortable. And
Mhm.
we met Tiana and Rapunzel at Princess Fairy Tale Hall. I think that was one of our other fast passes that
Mhm.
day.
Yeah.
And, I remember we weren't sure how my daughter was going to react to that sort of thing. She wasn't really familiar with Tiana or Rapunzel. Um, but she was super happy to hang out with them for a few
Mhm.
minutes. I remember she was hopping like a frog for Tiana, and oh my goodness, I just love that so much, and Tiana loved it too, and
Oh yeah.
it was genuine, and
She's
like
such a
that
good
was,
good a good character.
yeah. And I mean that, despite how crowded the parks were and how overwhelmed we were feeling because we were like, whoa, it's not 2003 at Disney World anymore. um, you know Meeting Tiana and Rapunzel was like our first experience of Disney magic on that trip. So, despite the fact we had a sick kid, despite the fact we had no plans or strategy, despite the fact that we spent hours in the park and really accomplished
Accomplished
absolutely
nothing.
nothing, you know, it's just like that Disney magic will find you. And it was great meeting them. And then we met Mary Poppins at the gazebo by the old Christmas shop in Liberty Square. And, you know, the kids knew about Mary Poppins at the time because I constantly watched that movie. They didn't know much about her, but she came up to them, and it was like Mary Poppins like whisked my kids away. They willingly went with Mary Poppins to the gazebo. And you know, again, it was just like more Disney magic. I don't know if baby Mary knew things weren't going so well for us, but the characters really have a way of turning things around, and they surely did for us during that trip.
Yeah.
Do you remember anything else do you remember where we ate? I mean, I do remember the Mickey pretzel. Do you remember anything else that we ate? We had
I
no
re-
dining
I
reservations.
don't think that we ate anywhere. I really don't. Like any restaurants or anything like that. Because when we started going, a few years later, like repetitively, like I didn't know a lot about the restaurants because we never
Yeah.
ate at them, for, that trip or, back in 2003, I don't think. And I was just like, well, what do they serve there? What do they have there? I don't know anything about these restaurants. But I
Yeah.
honestly, it probably was like Cosmic Rays or somewhere, quick service type of thing.
Yeah. I'm thinking in the
Um,
back of my mind it was probably Cosmic Rays because I think the first few trips I ever had to the Magic Kingdom, I ate at Cosmic Rays
mhm,
because they had burgers and fries, and
mhm.
that was
Yeah,
all I
solid
knew
menu,
about
good
Disney
for
food.
families for sure. As far as that trip, I want to say maybe there was a small world that we rode. But I know we did Mickey's PhilharMagic because that's the only time to date I've ever seen that show. I honestly don't
Sorry.
even remember if we saw much of or like a whole parade or anything then either, because it was all lack of preparation, not knowing, what the times were for these things, the little shows or parades going on, or the types of rides that were around us to know that, like, hey, I've heard that these lines, for this ride goes quickly, so let's just get in line for this. And I think we just, missed our mark on a lot that day.
And something I didn't even think of, it was the first time we had ever been at a Disney park with kids. Um, it was the
Mm,
first
yeah.
time I took my kids to Disney World. Um, and it's a very different experience with kids, even if you still feel like a kid in your heart. Those kiddos are going to need a lot of attention from you during your park day. They're going to be hungry, they're going to be thirsty, they're going to be tired, they're going to be crabby, they're going to be all seven dwarfs
Hmm.
during your park day. Whereas, in 2003, we were young, and it was just the two of us on that trip, and we could do whatever we wanted whenever we wanted. Um, so I think, you know, I think it was a learning experience for me to understand how Disney is different for kids versus, our only experiences with Disney were us personally.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I don't know at what point we called it a day. I do know it was dark outside because I took my daughter to meet Mickey at the Town Square Theater, and I think that was probably the last thing that we did
Hmm.
that day.
Yeah, there's no
Um,
fireworks.
yeah, and then headed out of the park. I don't even know that we knew to think about staying for fireworks. Again, I mean, just like a lack of knowing what there was to do, and you know not talking about the things that we did want to do. We just kind of showed up and thought we would figure it out, and it just and like I said, it did turn into a magical day, with the characters. And we don't look back on that trip as a bad trip. It's just, in fact, I actually mentioned this trip to my husband, and he was not supposed to be on this trip with us. We were living in Pennsylvania at the time. He was staying home and he was working. He actually joined us on the second half of this trip. He showed up as a surprise. And he actually told me when I mentioned this trip the other day that he showed up because he thought we were having such a good time. He had no idea um, just how stressed we were feeling and how unprepared we were and how things were just not going the way we had imagined in our heads.
Hmm.
And I think that's funny that he showed up for the fun stuff, but I mean, until I told him about, you know, the things that went wrong on this trip, he literally had no idea that we were stressing so much. He
Hmm.
just thought we were having a great vacation, and we did. Once we sort of pushed through, the Disney half of this trip, we did go to Universal Orlando on the last day of our vacation, and we also went to Legoland for 2 days as well.
Hmm.
Those things went fine. Um, you know, by the third day of our trip, that my son was feeling a little bit better. You know, I Legoland and Universal Studios are different parks than Disney, and I think we had a hard time with Disney because we really had something to compare that to, and that was our trip in 2003. And when it wasn't going the way that trip went, it just really sort of threw us off of our game. And we had only ever been at the Magic Kingdom, and on the second day of our trip, that was when we all went to Hollywood Studios for the first time. Um, And again, this was 2019. Galaxy's Edge was not open. Mickey and
Mm-hmm.
Minnie's Runaway Railroad was not open. Um, but I showed up at Hollywood Studios and I didn't even know that Honey, I Shrunk the Kids was no longer in the park. I also didn't know the difference between MGM Studios and Hollywood Studios, and I didn't know the reason for that change. I
Mm-hmm.
don't even know that I
Yeah.
noticed it was called Hollywood Studios. I think I still called it MGM Studios.
Mm.
But it again, it's just like being stuck in that old mentality that we had and not realizing how much had changed. And I think that's maybe why our Hollywood Studios day went a little better because we didn't have any expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the Magic Kingdom, we expected to
Yeah.
be like our
Yeah.
last trip there. But Hollywood Studios, we didn't really know what to expect. So I think we were more open minded.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I feel like, again, that was another day of characters, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. We as soon as we got there, we had a little bit of Star Wars there, and then the Disney Junior characters. Um, we walked around Toy Story Land, but didn't ride anything because it was just way too crowded.
Yeah. And
And
and you have a picture of the crowd that day, right?
yes, yeah, I was taking pictures of the toys and everything, and Slinky
So
Dog,
crowded.
and it was just a sea of people.
Yeah. And by the way, if you don't know this about Toy Story Land, there's not a lot of shade back there. So it's
No,
crowded and it's usually very hot and sunny. So
you have to commit
just,
to Slinky Dog if you're going to wait in a standby queue because they have little umbrellas and stuff set up, but it is a very hot queue.
it's
Very.
brutal in Andy's
Hmm.
backyard.
It really is. The toys are not much shade.
No. And the little green army men were walking
Hmm.
around. And they really stopped to take the time with the kids too.
Yeah,
And
I
we
mean,
really like that because I think that's what we were expecting the characters to be like, kind of
yeah,
spontaneous
and
and
just like they are now, like we did walk by and like saw like Woody in his little area there, and I think we saw Jesse too, but we didn't wait in the lines or anything. But they were there, but there was no opportunity to ride rides back there, and nor did we really know what we were missing out having it been our first time,
yeah.
and I don't even know that we really saw any shows.
Yeah. We did see the Frozen show.
Oh yeah. Okay, I think
We
that was the
did.
first time I've ever seen it. I don't think
And
we
I
saw Beauty and the Beast.
no, no, because I remember it was a while because that became seeing Beauty and the Beast was something specific you wanted to do
Mm-hmm.
during one of your trips down here.
Yeah.
We did see what is it called? The Frozen Sing Along. It is an
Mm-hmm.
excellent show. It's going to be great for the kids that are obsessed with Frozen. And guess what, grown-ups? There's a lot of adult humor in there for you.
There is, yeah.
They nail that show. It is
Mm-hmm.
so
Good,
good.
good sarcasm mixed with Disney humor. Not, it's not like it's inappropriate or anything like that, but it's just sometimes it's like you need to be an adult to get the joke. It's like, okay, I like what they're doing here. They're including us because we can get the joke, but the kids are just there for the characters and the sing along but it's good for the whole family. It really is.
Yeah. Um, and again, I don't know what we did for food that day.
I remember
I
being
do,
at those picnic tables. I
yes,
don't
I
know
do
where we
remember.
got food from, but I think that's where we ate. But I don't know, like it definitely wasn't a restaurant or anything, but it was a grab
That
and
I
go.
think there might have definitely been a Mickey pretzel that day too, because I'm pretty sure the first few times I was in Disney parks, I always got a Mickey pretzel. Um, unpopular opinion, Mickey pretzels are definitely not our favorite snacks. They're great for holding the kids over, and honestly, sometimes I like having a bite or two of the Mickey pretzels to just, settle my stomach when I'm getting a little overly hungry. But Mickey pretzels are adorable. Um, they just do not taste fantastic.
And on that note, if you want us to do another talking about snacks and stuff like that, we do know of a decent list of pretzels worth having.
We're
So
happy to talk about food
we will
and
gladly
drinks.
talk about pretzels and snacks and everything we missed out on that trip. We know we have redeemed ourselves since.
Yes,
So
yes.
if you want to
I
know
mean,
what we've
yeah,
done to remedy that since then, we will surely tell you.
yeah. The Mickey pretzel's not being great, but there are tons of super good options at the Disney parks, and we know what they are now because we
Yes.
learned.
Yes.
Um, we we really did learn so much from this trip, and you had said something that really stuck with me. That you had mentioned this the other day that it's almost like we needed this trip in 2019 to go badly
Mm-hmm.
so that we could grow and learn and
Yeah.
get to where we are now, that we're both authorized Disney vacation planners. We are completely obsessed with the parks and knowing every nook and cranny and detail and piece of information you could possibly want to know or not know. We know, you know, we try to know it all, you know, and I think that's how most of our sisterly conversations start. It's like, hey, did you see this new Disney thing?
Yeah.
Um, and then, we talk about the other stuff too, but I mean, I just,
Yeah, and like
we're,
even something as simple as you mentioning a pretzel makes me think of how much we've changed. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like we didn't know any better then, and now we know a list. Like we're just a wealth of knowledge from Disney, and like I said earlier, I'm really glad that that didn't deter us from having more experiences in a future with Disney. Being travel agents or just genuinely enjoying the parks. Um, yeah, it makes me happy. But I mean, now that we have the knowledge and everything else, we can look back and see, at least in our eyes, how bad that trip was. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And we don't want anyone else to have an experience like that. I mean, granted, you can make the best of it, and we did, but we didn't get to do as much as possible. And it is possible to be disappointed because you have such high expectations going in to those parks because of how amazing they are. So if you have a list of everything that you want to do and you're not able to do it, you need to have a backup plan of other things. Like say you want to ride all these, these A-list rides and you need to push them down, hey, we're not able to do this one, but we can do this one and then we can do some of those B-list rides so you can still get rides in and then maybe see a parade. So then you're checking off those boxes of being able to see characters instead, and you're fulfilling your day more so, with what you can and maybe not exactly what the expectations you had going into it. So you're not disappointed. And, that's the point of this talk is, yes, in some sort of way we were disappointed, but it was a growing experience from there.
yeah. And you can have a bad day at Disney, but not have a bad trip. And like I said, the second half of our trip at Legoland and Universal Studios was fine. Us having a bad trip at Disney had nothing to do with Disney itself. It was us being unprepared ourselves, and that kind of takes me into some of the tips I wanted to share, because you can absolutely go to the parks during spring break. There's no reason not to go to the
Hmm.
parks during spring break. You only have to be prepared for the fact that it will be crowded, and you need to have a strategy. And when I say strategy, I don't mean this is our list of all the things that we want to do and this is what we want to accomplish. It does not even have to be that
Mm-hmm.
intense or that super focused. You can be if you want. Sometimes, I do like to do, you know, I like to lay out an itinerary, but
Yeah.
you have to have a strategy and know what your options are.
And do
So,
your research too, because I mean, we've been through all different types of days in the parks, And with the proper strategy, and like I said before, knowing, what's going to work for you or what you can adapt and change to, or talking to somebody that, knows things that you could do on a busy day in the park, um, will really help. All right, this is my kitty Harvey. She wanted to join the
Hi,
chat.
Harvey.
She was very insistent on getting on my lap, so.
Oh, hello, Harvey. She's so cute. She's so sweet. And at the time, if we had understood some of the small changes that were made to FastPass, which was what was still being used in 2019, we probably would have made our reservation at Walt Disney World much sooner, so we could have taken advantage of making earlier selections for our fast passes that we did have. Um, we were locked into the days that we could be at Disney World because the whole trip revolved around our mother getting back from her cruise. So, we weren't really flexible on the dates because
Hmm.
we
And
wanted
it
this
was our,
trip
I
to
think it
come.
just kind of like clicked with us because it was her first cruise and it was the first time anyone had been to Florida in a long time. So we were
Hmm.
kind of like, we all want to be included, with, having not gone on the cruise, but like, if she's going to Florida, why don't we all go to Florida?
Yeah,
And, that's just kind of how that worked because that wasn't a normal thing for us. 'Cause like she
yeah,
said, it
and
had been 16 years since we had been there. So,
I've
um,
always had Florida in my heart, and I think that's why I live here. And it's not just because of the parks. The parks are wonderful to have them so close by, but the reality is,
oh, Disney Buddy.
we have our lives down here. The kids have their lives down here. It keeps us very busy. We do not get to spend as much time at the parks as I wished in my brain that we could. Um, but we were we were happy to get this little vacation in 2019. I don't really think any of us had traveled hardly anywhere for years. Like we were growing
Mm-mm.
up and becoming adults, and I was having babies, and you know I think apart from visiting some of the smaller amusement parks in the southwestern Pennsylvania area, we really hadn't gone anywhere for a
And I think
long
that was
time.
one of
And
the first times we've ever really flown too.
yeah,
May have been a little trip, you know, here or there, but at least as a family, that was the first time I think that we all flew together.
yeah. And, I think if we could have maybe done things a little bit differently on that trip in 2019, I know I've mentioned it before, but it is important. I wished we had booked early. Like I said, we could have, maybe we would have had different resort options. Maybe we would have made dining reservations
Speaking of,
because
did we say where we stayed?
we stayed at All Star Movies Resort. Um, we
Classic.
did stay at All Star Movies, and
Yes.
I didn't know the difference between All Star Movies and Art of Animation when we went in 2019. I didn't realize those were two different things, and I thought we were staying at Art of Animation because,
Honestly, I don't even think I knew the mass amount of resorts that Disney had anyways.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
We found a value resort and went with it. Not, I mean, I'm sure that's what we would have picked anyhow, with budget and everything, but like I don't even think I knew that Polynesian existed or you know what I mean? Like it was just we just didn't have the knowledge and we just kind of winged it a little bit, which is fine because All Star Movies is an amazing resort.
yeah. It's
But
got great theming,
we had
especially for
no we
families.
had no issues on that aspect of the trip at
Yes,
all.
the resort was great. No
Hmm.
problems there. Um, you know, and like I said, I wish we had booked early, and you know, I also wish we had had realistic and appropriate expectations. It was not 2003 anymore, and I mean, like, how many times have we mentioned that during this conversation? Like, but that's how our brains were work. I mean, that's what we knew was what Disney World was like in 2003. And, crowds are unavoidable. I don't know if you know this about the Disney parks, but, a lot of people say, what are the low crowd days? And the response is usually there aren't low crowd days. And
Yeah.
I think that's pretty accurate.
Yeah,
Um,
there are, crowds like that where you can't even get into a line for Dumbo, and then there are crowds where, with proper crowd management, you could still get a lot done. I mean, and now, my Disney Experience app is super helpful. Pre-planning is super helpful, and just, you know, talking to people that have dealt with, how to handle crowds and what else you could do is, it makes wonders for making your trip better.
yeah, but
We just didn't do any of those things.
you have to you should have some idea what you and the people that you're traveling with want to accomplish at the parks. Do they have favorite characters? Do they have favorite movies? Do they have favorite attractions? Like, what are the things that you want to make sure you get to do at the parks? Because you should prioritize that over,
Yeah.
oh, we should ride, you know, we should do the carousel of progress and cool off for a while. That's a great
Mm-hmm.
strategy, and it can completely reset and recharge everybody. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, even my grumpy husband feels better after going through the carousel of progress. But, what are the things that you want to make sure you do with your Disney trip? You don't need to have a, minute by minute,
Mm-hmm.
plan for
Yeah, that
everything.
that won't work.
But you don't want to go home with regrets and say, oh man, we didn't even ride Pirates of the Caribbean. You don't want that to happen. You don't want to miss that. At least I don't want to miss that one ever. So just having an idea of what people want to do on your Disney vacation helps. And if you're like us and you find yourself having a big family vacation during spring break, um, you should be thinking about park hoppers. So you have the option of going to another park if the park you're at is just really busy and you're really having a hard time finding something to do to, minimize the crowd levels. It's not easy park hopping. I will fully admit that we don't park hop very often at all, but the times that we do use park hopper, it is always because the park we are at is just feeling a little too crowded and we're just not having the most magical time. So, park hoppers can come in handy. And also, pay to skip the lines. A lot of people
Mm-hmm.
don't like the fact that, fast passes used to be a complimentary service. I mean, that was great. That was a wonderful perk. But that doesn't mean that, lightning lanes and multi-pass or even the premier pass, they all have some great benefits. The premier pass, you can skip every single line at the park you're at.
Mm-hmm.
It comes at a pretty big price tag, but I mean, if you're there to ride the rides and do all the things, like, especially at a busy time of year, like that's the only way you're
Yeah.
gonna do that.
Yeah, and you gotta accept that too. That hey, if we want to get this stuff done, pop it in your budget. Just know that that's gonna help get that done. But if not, there's definitely other ways to do it without. Um, it just might not be your plan A, but you will have a really fun time no matter what.
Yeah, and trust me when I say this, and I'm not even gonna sugarcoat it. Sometimes it feels really good to just skip the line.
Oh
um,
yeah, yeah. Oh
it's
yes.
it's such a relief, and I mean, you're just literally walking past all the time that you would be spending,
Mhm.
standing in line with your kids. It does feel really good to skip the lines. Like I said, you have to pay for that service. Sometimes it's not necessary, but if it's going to be busy, that may be something that you really, really do want to reconsider, if you can fit that into your budget.
And there's
And
so many different strategies out there. Like me personally, I am a early entry rope drop person to fireworks and clothes. Like I'm an all dayer. So
she
that
is.
gives me, oh, I mean, it's tiring for sure, especially if you're taking a family and have all of them to think about, and naps and sleeps and everything else. But I mean that's one way to clearly do more in a day is put in the time. And then there's other people out there that want to get there, have breakfast, get there, do what they can do, maybe even go back to the resort for a nap, come back, then do fireworks later. I mean, there's so many different strategies you can do that works for your family or gives you the rest that you need or just gets you at your goal of what you want to reach. And we can definitely help you with that too, because there's
Yeah.
so many different things you could do to still be happy with your trip.
Um, so we learned a lot from that trip in 2019. We've taken it upon ourselves to know as much as we can possibly know about the Disney parks, and really making the most of every visit that we have. I mean, it's interesting that now that we get to go to the parks so frequently together, that you know we love it more and more.
Mm-hmm.
And it truly is a magical, wonderful place for us. And having a bad experience at the parks doesn't mean it's not going to work for you, or Disney vacation isn't for everybody. you know I understand that can sometimes be the case, but um, you know you can definitely make it work if you just think about it a little bit, or you get a travel agent to think about it for you,
Mm-hmm.
because
And believe me,
it's
this is my second year of having an annual pass, and every time I go visit or we plan a day in the parks, I always bring like a new list of things that I've learned since last time, or things that we haven't done yet, that things I want to do, and we put it on the list, and it's never ending. Like there's still so much that I've not accomplished. So there's no way you can accomplish everything in one trip anyways, but you just need to do the research on what will make you happy and the certain things that you want to get done and that you want to see or want to ride or want to eat, and set your expectations reasonable.
Yeah. And our story about our trip in 2019 is a really good example of what not to do on your vacation. We didn't have a travel agent. We didn't do our research. We didn't have a strategy. We didn't have a plan. We showed up
Mm-hmm.
during spring break. It might work out once in a while, for people who visit Disney and, don't really have a plan or a strategy. It might be okay sometimes, but you don't want to spend all that money on your Disney vacation and, not have the best day ever, because, Disney isn't a place that has bad days. At least that's the way it feels for me. Like there's never a
Yeah.
bad day at Disney.
Oh, right.
But things can go wrong. And, like even my son not feeling well, I mean, that's certainly not something anybody wants to happen on their vacation. It happens all the time to so many people. There are options that you may have. Your travel agent can certainly help you work through options if you find yourself on vacation and someone's not feeling well. Disney is usually very accommodating and understanding of issues like that. We didn't even think in 2019 to even ask a cast member,
Mm-hmm.
hey, not feeling so well, what do we do about this?
Mm-hmm. Or even just
You
to
know,
pack a little first aid kit of things that we might need if someone catches a cold, or just little bits of medication here or there, ointments that you can have on hand that could somebody gets a blister in the park. You know what I mean? Just all these little things that could happen in the middle of your trip, and it could easily be remedied with some prep work.
Yep. And, also I feel like one of my favorite things that I learned is the care centers that are available in every
Mm-hmm.
single park. They helped me so much when my daughter hit her head on our vehicle door
Mm-hmm.
during one of our Animal Kingdom days just a couple years ago. We went to the care center and they were absolutely incredible with her, and they had everything we needed there. So,
Well,
again,
recently, when you
another,
were going to get on Rise of the Resistance and you had a very bad nosebleed, they were on it. They were super attentive, and they made sure she was good to go to continue her day, and that she felt better. And they're magical all the way around.
yes, the
It
cast
really
members
is.
are absolutely magical. I think almost every single time I visit the parks, there's a cast member that I submit a compliment for because
Yeah.
Disney customer service really goes above and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
You just need to ask for help, and whether it's your travel agent or you reach out directly to a cast member on your trip, there are lots of people willing to help you get through some of your vacation struggles. So, we hope that our story and our conversation help you avoid some of the mistakes that we made. Maybe you learned something from this, or maybe you were just entertained by just how absolutely naive and foolish we were about showing up at Disney for spring break with no idea what we wanted to do. We hope to have more of these conversations to share with you in the future. She and I have already talked about some really interesting topics that nobody talks about that is the type of stuff that most people don't think about
Mm-hmm.
for their theme park trips. So we hope to do more of these in the future, and we really appreciate it if you like and subscribe and do all that stuff, and share it with your Disney sister, your Disney
Mm-hmm.
friends, or your Disney family. We really appreciate any support that you can give us. And, like I said, we hope to share more conversations with you in the future.
Yeah, now reach out to us with any questions or ideas of things you want us to talk about that could help you along the way, or answer some questions for you, or if you just want some Disney fun satire, we're here for that too, because we have this knowledge that we want to share. So that's why we're here, and hope to talk again soon.
Yep. And if you are somebody that's needing help with your Disney vacation, like right now, just comment help below and we'll reach out to you
Yeah.
directly and, start taking care of you. So thanks again for watching, Mandy. Thanks for having this chat with me. I'm always willing to talk Disney with you, and
Same.
we're happy to
Yep.
share it with you too.
Yeah, me too.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, guys.